for Erica, that is so exciting that you've discovered that the data won't get worn out if more people can look at it.
Yeah, we're excited.
That's really cool. I'm very curious about that. All of the students saying, "I never skip class and I never go to class unprepared because that does not match my experience." Hello, I'm Victoria Cross. I'm an LPSOE in the Department of Psychology. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I have been combining my teaching with my research interests in the scholarship of teaching and learning and creating a program of assessment from my own curiosity as an instructor and a researcher. So I'm in the psychology department, and APA, the American Psychological Association, has published their major 2.0, what every psychology major in the country should be achieving by the end of their degree. And there are 5. I cut off the other 2. But number 2 right there is scientific inquiry and critical thinking. This is what we say we're going to teach. If you come and learn study a degree in psychology, you are going to improve your critical thinking skills. We are going to teach you scientific reasoning and critical thinking. And so I've been teaching for a long time, about 10 years now, the lower division Introduction to Research Methods. And I have, 400 students a quarter, and I get to meet with them for 3 hours a week. And I am trying to reach each and every one of them to improve their critical thinking skills and to challenge them to think in a whole new way. It's not learn these facts. It's not run these equations. It's how do you think about the world and how are you going to change the way you think about the world? Obviously with 10 weeks, 3 hours a week, 400 students, there's a limit to how much I can get across. I'm very focused on the vocabulary and the concepts and some practice and starting them on their path. This is a lower division class. They've got a lot more classes in the major that are going to reinforce these skills. So I was doing pretty well. I was feeling like I was reaching the students. I was getting good student evaluations. And I looked one quarter at the comments the students made on the teaching evaluations. That is they didn't know how to spell too. So the grading was crazy. I never knew what they wanted. This is the end of the quarter. It wasn't hard, but the grading was ridiculous. They didn't want you to succeed. They were harsh. We practiced quite a bit for critical thinking, but at the end of the quarter, we were unclear on what we were meant to do, and we didn't know what we were meant to do. And so, I felt like I'd been spending 10 weeks telling these people, these students, exactly what I wanted them to do, and that they were mostly succeeding and progressing, but then here were some of these comments, and they got to me. So I started looking, I decided I would look at the 65 students who wrote comments that quarter and just do a content analysis. So I looked at, those that spontaneously said, I know what is expected, or I don't know what is expected. Those that spontaneously said the grading was fair or unfair, and that word harsh. And so this seems to me to be a problem. I saw this and I thought, wow, this is a problem. For whatever it is that I feel like I'm doing, that how I'm teaching, how I'm communicating, the students who chose to write comments, more than 20% of them at the end are saying, I never knew what was expected. So I go back to the basics. I looked up some evidence-based teaching strategies. I was like, okay, I got this. Clear lesson goals. Tell them what they need, show them what they need, check for understanding, plenty practice and practicing the right things. Lots of feedback. Some of them are going to be on a different trajectory, so it's going to take some time. The strategies, the metacognition. And I thought about my basic assumptions about learning, that the students, they need to be actively engaged. Look, I can get up there and give entertaining lectures, but that's not teaching. That's not them really able to incorporate a new way of thinking. They certainly in the lower division class, they're struggling with what they need to know. They're struggling with how they study. And so giving them the structure where it's clear that they're spending their time, that if they spend time, they will increase. So the anecdote would be that we always hear, oh, I've read the chapter 5 times. Okay, so that's not an effective way for you to be studying this material. So let's take that time that you're investing and make sure that you're doing that in a way that's more explicitly structured and scaffolded. And then finally, there's a lot of competition for a student's time, and that in order for the students to spend more time on my assignments, I need to have those prioritized over your assignments. And so by making sure that they're graded and that they get feedback and that they're seen as valuable, that the students are going to prioritize those. So I did a number of interventions. In lecture, I broke it down and really spoon-fed. It's a lower division class. I mean, I actually joked that it wasn't even spoon-fed. I was like, got the eyedropper out and was like, this is what we're asking you to do. So very, very clear in lecture. On assignments, the critical thinking portion of the assignments had been a written assignment right from the first assignment. And what I did is I made that first one far more scaffolded, far more structured, leading them to the answer, and then, kind of putting training wheels on that first assignment. And then I also created some additional support. So I had this idea that I didn't want to get in the way of the students who had mastered this. We've got a wide range of preparedness. But I wanted to make sure that there was information available for the students who needed it. So, have provided some additional support. So I worked with a graduate student and we made some videos that were linked through an assignment, through assignments, to guide the students through 4 different examples of this is what we're looking for. This is how we do this. So how am I going to track the impact of this? In this case, I tracked the impact using a written assignment that was due through homework. And so it's due on the 10th day of instruction. So it's pretty early in the quarter, but it's the second time they've done this now. Compared to the previous quarter, so I just looked at, after I'd made these interventions compared to the previous quarter, there was they did significantly better. And significantly better. They went from a D to a B. So, on this question, on this assignment, they are now showing mastery at the 10th week. The 10th day. So now I want to look at their student evaluations. Remember, they're harsh and it's unfair, and we had no idea what we were meant to be doing. And so when we look at winter 2014 that comes before fall 2014, right? So, and the interventions were made in between there. I know what is expected has spontaneously doubled, right? So this is just the comments that the students choose to write. The expectations are unclear has completely vanished. The unfair grading and the harsh grading have also been reduced. So looking just at the comments on the student evaluations, I'm seeing that I had some impact on the student experience. And we get much different written comments. I understood what was expected. It was all clearly stated. It was fair. We knew what was expected of us. Straightforward, clear, well organized. We know what was expected of us. So then I was thinking, okay, so I'm looking at these students, but there are so many differences between the students. Like Carolyn was saying this morning, we've got such a wide range of preparedness in our students. How are each of those subgroups doing? So, particularly interested in tracking those students with academic risk factors, just like Carolyn was saying, those who are among the first generation of their family to graduate from university, so whose parents don't have 4-year degrees, those who come from underrepresented minorities and low-income backgrounds. And so these academic risk factors, here were the definitions that I was using for those. And this is data that is available through the registrar's office with written consent. because we all know that we're at a university where we are reaching out to these groups of students and we're making sure that everyone has a seat at the table and that we are making a big effort to enroll and hopefully encourage success among these students. So the measure of achievement that I chose this time was actually their performance on an exam. So during the quarter, they take 3 written exams, and a part of each of those exams is to, on the spot, right then, generate evidence of critical thinking. So I give them a little blurb. It's almost always causal claims from correlational data. So this is an example where it's saying pot makes you stupid because the people who were smoking pot earlier, younger, performed less well. And so they, on the spot, need to generate alternate explanations. Maybe there was something different between the groups to begin with. Maybe it wasn't the pot. Maybe they were doing other things as well. So when I look at their performance on that first exam, the critical thinking portion of that first exam, and this is from the first generation students and the continuing generation students. So the dark blue line are those whose parents have a 4-year degree, and the light blue line is those students who are from families with no 4-year degree. And you can see this difference here, right? So on the first midterm, there's a 14% gap in achievement on that critical thinking score. Now, that gap then shrinks to about a 5%, and it maintains. And so this, okay, different students are going to learn this material at different speeds. We need to allow time to practice. We need to allow time for the learning to happen. Yeah, I want to speed that up. So can I speed that up? The critical thinking examples that I had made available but optional before, I looked at them and I saw that about a third of the students were using them, but I wondered if they could be more effectively used, if they were required. So, all good intentions, I'll do it tomorrow. No, I'm going to require them, and now they're going to prioritize that. So this is what they look like in Canvas. There's a video clip of a TA explaining exactly what we want them to know or say, and then they're given an opportunity to answer that question. And so they move from very highly, it's a progression of scaffolded assignments. So the first one is just recognize what the TA is saying, and then they move through progressively, fill in the blanks, and then write out your own example. And when I look at the exam grades between the first generation and the continuing generation students, that initial gap has closed to the same as the ongoing gap. Isn't that exciting?
Patricia's giving you thumbs up.
So then I thought, okay, so I believe that you have to be writing in order to demonstrate critical thinking, and that critical thinking and writing and critiquing those claims and critiquing how you've measured a variable, that's really the gold standard of what is critical thinking. But boy, it's hard. It's labor intensive to grade. There's only so many I can do. There's only so many I can ask my TAs to grade. There's just a limit there. And that it's subjective. We need to have a rubric, and we need to have a grading team that's all on board. So I was wondering about, is there an objective way of just assessing critical thinking that is focused on the skills that we are interested in, which are really the scientific reasoning, evaluating internal validity, so knowing when you've reached a causal relationship, and evaluating construct validity, knowing that you are actually measuring something that you think you're measuring. I looked around. There are a lot of critical thinking tests out there, but they're primarily aimed at employment. They're primarily aimed at, is this going to be a good employee? How are we going to, what's this employee going to do for you? So there wasn't anything that was really useful for us on campus to assess this. So I wrote one. So I call this the critical thinking challenge, because it's meant to be challenging, and the students, and that helps them think that they're not meant to get them all right. It's an auto-graded instrument. The face validity was established through review of our faculty and graduate students. We piloted it, and it has very high internal consistency and reliability. So here's a sample question from it. We're looking for, can you identify when you can determine causation? And they're given a number of different scenarios, and they need to choose which ones would allow them to determine causation and which ones would not allow them to determine causation. So you see the word randomly assigned there, right? You all know which one allows them to determine causation. And so now this allows me to track critical thinking across a degree. I gave this to nearly 2,000 students last year. I started, from the first week that they're on campus, I grabbed them in intro psych right at the first week while they're on campus. I grabbed them at the end of their degree, the last week of spring quarter, as they're graduating seniors. So we had a couple of different predictive variables, the course that they were in. So we gave this either at the beginning of an intro psychology class, the beginning of a research methods class, which is a little confusing because even though it's a lower division and it's a prereq for everything else, you might be aware that we weren't checking prereqs until recently. So a lot of students put that off until they were further in their degree. So it's not quite clear how many classes they've had. And then right at the end of an upper division psychology course. So, we've got this sort of educated by us, component here. And we asked them how many times how many years they'd been in education. We asked them to self-report about their parental education. So this is the educated by us. So the beginning, the first week of general psychology, the first week of a research methods course, and then the last week of an upper division course. We can see definitely that our claim that come here and we will teach you critical thinking skills is true. I'm sorry, I haven't got the ANOVA up there. That is a significant difference, P less than 0.00. When I break that down by parental education, and so we've got continuing generation and first generation students, and we can see that risk factor is showing as a deficit in preparedness here. It looks like that gap is really closing, but that wasn't a significant interaction. But it is certainly all groups are showing an increase. When we look over 4 years, we got the year 0, which is the first week on campus. And these skills take a long time, don't they? So year 0, we've got 1 year under our belt. We've got 2 years under our belt. We're not showing much of a difference yet. But then by the time they've got 3 years under their belt, by the time they're starting their 4th year or ending their 4th year, they are really showing a lot more skill here. And then finally, the 5th year students are on a different trajectory. Right, the students who are still here at the end of 5 years have taken a different path, and are not from the same group as the students that finish their degree in 4 years. When we break that down by critical thinking, by parental education, again we're seeing an increase, the same sort of pattern. Again, the 5th years are dropping off. And that, again, it wasn't a significant interaction, so there's not evidence that gap is really closing, but it certainly is showing that though they might be on different trajectories, everyone is making that same progress through their degree. So then I thought, boy, wouldn't it be great to gather the longitudinal data? So now that I kind of grabbed these for the program assessment, but now I'm like, hey, it's nearly the end of spring quarter again. I got this tool in my tool belt. I can contact my faculty and have them posted on Canvas next week and grab the next cohort of students. And I'll be grabbing some that I've seen before. We'll be able to track some individuals across their degree. I want to sample from other majors. I want to know. I would think that almost every major has some degree of critical thinking. thinking, and we want our students to be able, that 4 years on this campus is going to increase their thinking and reasoning abilities. But boy, it would be nice to see differences in the scientific majors, or the majors more focused on science, and those more focused on other aspects. But now my time is up, right?
No, I was just saying you just threw down the gauntlet. We have time for questions.
Time for questions. And I just acknowledgements to Curtis, who made those videos with me, and the hundreds of 41 students. Yes.
Well, I thought it was super interesting what you said that the critical thinking tools that you could find were for people testing our students going into professional roles, and it just really does speak to the need for something like this across the university,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe that's what you're looking for, looking at other majors. Because that's what we want, right? We want them to be successful, and so doing it at the other level.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems to me like it's one of those just absolutely universal skills that we all need and we all value, and that psychology certainly doesn't have the corner on the market, and there's no value in us keeping it to ourselves, but that it is a particular focus within psychology of thinking critically. But yes, as they move forward into their careers, there were a number of critical thinking tests aimed at employment. Yes.
This has a lot of significance for you personally, because I took like 41 years ago.
Oh, that's right. 27 years ago? That was slightly before my time, but not much.
And we didn't have anything like that. I just said, none of the scaffolding and practice, and that was the way it was.
Yeah.
Nothing to be, that's just the way it is. Now we can see so many things happening and working on so much better because we're thinking about assessment, thinking intentionally about design of instruction. And what I loved about what you're talking about here is that you built in scaffolding, you built in a lot of scaffolding for transparent assignments, and you've got practice. Again, those talks in the program, we both heard from your colleagues about practice and how important that is for mastery. And I love that you made those 4 assignments required. It's absolutely essential, so that's wonderful to see. And I was wondering, because so many times you hear people say, that's spoon feeding, or that's bending down the And I don't agree. I'll be completely on board with it. I don't think any of us are before, because we all appreciate good instruction where there's clarity on what people are teaching us, and there's clarity on the path. It's been intentionally designed for us to follow to reach those understandings. But I wonder if you countered anything like that. And, the kind of criticism of that, approach. And what would you say if somebody thinks that?
Okay. I kind of embrace the spoon feeding and the eyedropper at this level. So this is Psych 41. This is the introduction to how we want you to think for the next 4 years as you move through this major. And if I just stood there as the instructor going, go on then, think, and, they weren't able to do that, that's not preparing them for the upper division courses where they're going to need to go on then, think. I can lay this out and lead them along the way and lead little crumb trails. They still have to do the work. They still have to change the way they think. And my TAs, team meetings, almost always, the TAs, they complain about the work. I've got 8 written assignments, 4 written exams. They're doing a lot of grading in a major where a lot of the rest of it is just Scantron exams. But they're really proud of themselves. And they, through the quarter, say, they're never going to be able to turn this off. We are changing the way they're thinking, and they are going to think this way forever. And the students spontaneously say that as well. I'm never going to see a commercial and listen to it. I can't listen to them in the same way anymore. Yes. And so, is it spoon-fed? I think it's just effective instruction. I think it's meeting them where they are and making sure that they are able to to the best of their abilities, follow the path to where we need them to get to. And if they don't do the work, they don't succeed. They don't get there. But if they do the work, they certainly do get there. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much.